Thank you so much, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Thanks, Ashay, for including me in this day-long program. So, my talk will be in two parts. The first part will talk about practice inclusion of speech and hearing impaired in employment. So that is about the practical experience that we have experienced. The second part will talk about how we're trying to expand that into creating more jobs for speech and hearing. So there'll be two parts. So I'll start a storytelling approach in the first part, where I'll talk about the restaurant that we created, and then we'll move on. I'll show you a few slides. So that's how I'll start. So basically, my partner, we have been busy in doing our regular full-time jobs, and simultaneously we started mentoring young entrepreneurs who have ventured into business, like typically entrepreneurs between 25 to 30 years who ventured doing businesses. We started mentoring them. Well, this going on, we saw a video on Facebook which was about a restaurant started by an Indian guy in Toronto, in Canada. The name of the restaurant, Signs, S-I-G-N-S. And he had used speech and hearing impaired waiters. And both of us saw that video and we said, this is something we should do in India and very, very doable. Because firstly, we do not have employment opportunities for speech and hearing impaired. And secondly, we do not have any law or anything that protects or provides any kind of facilities employment for speech and hearing impaired. And there are a sufficient number of people as well. So we took this as a passionate venture, and then we found one of our mentees who agreed to take up this project. And that's how we started a restaurant called Mirchi and Mine. Mirchi and Mine opened doors to customers in May 2015. And the format was very simple. All the waiters, typically a restaurant has got about 40 to 50 employees, of which 25 are waiters and another 25 are kitchen staff and managers. So we have decided to employ the entire waiters from the speech and hearing impaired community. So which means a restaurant with 50 employees will have 25 customer-facing and hearing impaired people or deaf people, as we call them, and the rest of the people are talking. So what we had put forth as a mandate is our official language. Official language is something which is used to transact business. So for us, our official language, we decided is Indian Sign Language. We also talk English, or we also talk Hindi or Marathi as a internal communication language. But the language to communicate with the customers was decided to be Indian Sign Language. So right from literally inventing the entire process, there were no benchmarks. So we had to literally invent, or like you can call it rediscover, the processes that a hospitality industry would use for speech and hearing impaired. So the entire thing was designed in terms of, so starting from recruiting these people, getting them trained and giving them the jobs of waiters was a big uphill task. It all started with recruitment of staff itself. So what we did was we went to one of the deaf schools that are there in Bombay. It's called Ruchiram Pradhani School. And we went and met the principal. And we told him that we want to do campus interviews. So the first reaction by the principal of Ruchiram Pradhani was, don't joke, man. You want one or two people? How many people do you want? No, we need 25 people. And we need to do a campus interview in your place. He said, no, you must be joking. Or you must be, whatever, doing some tricks or something. We said, no, we are in a restaurant. And so then he asked, like what? How will you do it? So all we had was, we just had a Facebook video and we just showed a video and said, this is what it is. So finally, after we got over the first threshold of first a principal of a deaf school accepting that we can open a restaurant with deaf waiters. That was the first start. Then we had people coming for interviews. And even in the interviews, each of the candidates brought with them their family members. They came with father, mother, sister, brother. About 5, 6 people came with each candidate. And they in turn were interviewing us. And they were asking, like, okay, tell me, what will my child do? What will my son do? And we started telling them, they will do the work of a waiter. They will pick up customer order in a restaurant from the customer. And they will go to the kitchen. They will give the order. And whatever food is prepared, they will come and give it to the customers or clients. And then they will vacate the plates that are finished, etc., etc. Then the whole reaction by even the parents of the deaf people is like, no, 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 my son doesn't know how to do all this. He doesn't even lift a glass in at home. He doesn't even do this. So how can you expect him to do all this? So then we said we will train them. But the whole thing, the whole approach itself was completely unbelievable for them. Like, how come my son, who doesn't know how to speak and listen, is able to serve a customer in a restaurant, and you promise to train? So that is when we realized that the whole approach was coming from a suspicion approach, because all of us, all the able people, we have kind of suppressed the speech and hearing impaired people, or people with disabilities for that matter. First, by not treating them as equal. Second, by not providing them equal opportunities. Third, by not providing them opportunities for jobs, etc., etc. Not because we don't like it, we don't know how to do it. It's plain and simple. So, like when you meet a blind person, you just don't know what to do. So, automatically, pity flows out of you, saying, like, "Oh, how does he wear his clothes? How does he wash his face? How does he find his way home? How does he take the train? How does he take the bus?" So, this is all we keep thinking about. So, forget about inclusion or engaging them into meaningful relationship with us, either in a work scenario or any other scenario. We are all only worried about pity. And the moment your brain starts worrying about pity, you're only trying to think of how to support them in terms of providing them money or providing them help, but we're not talking about including them in our life, right? So starting from there, we started, and once the recruitment was over, then we started live operations in October, in May 2015. And when customers started walking in, then we also realized that they were all trained for about 3 months in the classroom. We realized that that theoretical training did not work with them at all. So that approach of learning in a classroom they don't have. They just cannot learn in a classroom. So that is when again we realized we postponed our launch by 1 month, and we said these people need to be trained on the job. So what we did was we got speaking waiters, and we attached one speech and hearing and one deaf waiter to one speaking waiter, and we told them, you just shadow this person, just go after him, do whatever he's doing, just watch, just watch, just watch. And that is when we figured out that whatever they learned through a visual receiving of communication was very, very strong. And they learned everything in hardly about 4 or 5 days. They learned everything, and that is also when we realized the theory classes that we held for 3 months were a total waste of time. So after that, subsequently in the subsequent batches, we just brought them and did shadow training, as we call, or piggyback training as it's called. So that was the opening of our first restaurant. We opened in May 2015. Fortunately, it did very well. The customers were overwhelmed by this concept. And the other issue with food is that people will come and visit your restaurant like as if they're visiting a zoo, saying that, oh, there is something new happening here. Let's go and see. That is the first time they will come. So we don't have a problem when for people visiting the first time. Why would anyone come a second time? The second time they would come only to food calls them. So constantly our focus was on food, while our delivery was through speech and hearing impaired. So we just kept renovating the food, the cuisine, like several restaurants. But along with managing the food and the hygiene and the recipes and the taste and all that, we had this additional challenge of managing the speech and hearing impaired. So things went really well in 2015-16. After about a year, we opened a second restaurant, and then later a third restaurant. So soon we became India's largest single, largest private company, employing almost, I mean, we across 3 restaurants, we employed 75 speech and hearing impaired. So we were probably the only company who was delivering our business exclusively through speech and hearing impaired. So having done that, we received a lot of recognition, primarily from the speech and hearing impaired community. A lot of they also have some leaders and representatives, etc. They came to us and they said, like, why don't you help our community or help our people find jobs? So that is when we formed Ekalavya Foundation. Ekalavya Education and Research Foundation was founded in July 2019. That's about 15-16 months ago, with the sole purpose of finding employment for speech and hearing impaired through vocational training. So over the last 1.5 years, I've extensively visited several corporates and given them awareness sessions and awareness lectures, through which what I found out was the intent of all the corporates was like they all want to do some things. But the thing is, they don't know how to do it. I'll just show you a few slides here. I mean, some of these we don't need to go. Yeah. So the advantages of using speech and hearing impaired is something like this. They are very, very good at visual learning, visual activity, dexterous work. They're very good at. They're very good at standardized work environment. They cannot work in a dynamic environment. Like if you tell them you come and I'll give you some work today, some work tomorrow, or morning shift today and evening shift tomorrow, they will get very disoriented. The whole thing is like they are not able to manage dynamic situation. So what they do is their brain somehow works like a programmed environment. So in a programmed environment, if they know what is to be done, A, B, C, D, that is what they're able to do very well. So we have also identified some profiles which are good for them. Things like restaurants, hospitality, hotels, data entry, accounting, email, back office, tailoring, spas and parlors, packing, loading, unloading, logistics, housekeeping, etc., are very easily performed by them. And some of the things we observe from them is there is very low attrition because all of them are committed to make something out of their careers. So it's not like just doing a job, but for them it is about creating an identity. During all through their childhood, right from the time they were born till they have completed whatever, some of them have studied, some of them have not studied. They have been suppressed and oppressed, not by choice, but just because it's like when you like elephants, we all know that an elephant is tied to a chain just for about 1 or 2 months, and after that it is left free. The elephant thinks that it is chained and it does not go around beyond a certain boundary, something like that. They have been told time and again that you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to speak, you cannot work, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, so you're useless, kind of thing has been brainwashed into them. So they are highly motivated to do something to create a career. So they have very high concentration levels, very low distraction. Of course, sound as a distraction is absent for them. And besides, since they don't have the cognitive learning aspect, their visual learning ability is very, very high. And because of their visual learning ability, they deliver that visual learning in a programmed approach. So they know the process to do A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. So that is how they are able to deliver much higher throughput as compared to even the able people. Provided, I'll just show you another graphic which talks about this is just a schematic comparison of skills between abled and disabled. Here, disabled, I'm specifically referring to speech and hearing impaired. But this is a very theoretical chart, and it's not based on real data. It's based on I'm trying to force fit a model here just to show you a comparison. So abled people, I mean, we all know that we have five senses or whatever they call hearing, speaking, etc., etc. I'm not giving names of those senses. I'm just putting five senses that we have. And in a work environment, we deliver certain output in each of these skills. So just a sample, I've said, like we are probably delivering 7 on skill 1, 8 on skill 2, 6 on skill 3, 9 on skill 4, and 8 on skill 5. This is what an able person delivers during a normal work environment. Because like you're not always working 100% capacity, 100% skill level. And in comparison, a disabled person has one skill missing. I just use it as an example, one skill missing. And we all know that most disabled people, because of that one skill missing, their other skills are slightly heightened, right? This is proven. And so this is just a graphic enumeration of the thought that I had. So their skill levels are not the normal that we have on a 1 to 10 scale, if you may say. It is slightly higher for the four skills that they have, and the one skill is like disabled. So on this enhanced scale, they are able to deliver something like this. So while able person is able to deliver 7 on 10, the disabled person is able to deliver 9 on 12 or 13. Right, on ratio basis it's similar, but if you just look at it at a cumulative basis, provided the person is not required to have the last skill, which is this, then he or she may be able to deliver much better throughput in the other skills that he has. So if you are talking about a telephone operator, obviously a speech and hearing impaired person cannot do a telephone operator activity. So if we take a role like a production or an assembly kind of environment where this last skill is not required, then most likely, at least in our observation, we have observed in our restaurant and in various companies that we have deployed speech and hearing impaired people, that they're able to deliver much better. And most companies who have employed speech engineering impaired are coming back asking for more and more speech engineering impaired. But there are some conditions that apply. Now, what are those conditions? Now, here is where the challenge is. Most corporates do not know the buts, and therefore they address this situation in a very different way. All of us know what is inclusion. Almost every company talks about diversity and inclusion, and most large companies have got a separate section in their annual report which covers 5 or 6 pages. In the last 1 year, I have visited over 25 large corporates, and with most of them, when I spoke about diversity and inclusion, all of them are aware, and all of them have got a great part in their annual report. And most people think diversity means you just employ a few religions and employ women and give them growth if they think that diversity and inclusion is done. But there is a lot more to diversity and inclusion. The whole issue about inclusion here is our definition of inclusion. The English meaning or definition of inclusion means you have this whatever some space which is yours, in which there is this thing which is does not belong to this. So what do? You brainwash this guy and you train him. We call it training. You brainwash this guy and then you bring him into this and you drop him into this box and you assume that he behaves along with the other people in the way that they are behaving. That is what we call it. I'm just putting it in a very crude way. But basically, what we do is we get somebody who does not belong to this group. We train, brainwash that guy. We also give these people some instructions and we tell them treat this guy nicely and properly and all that. And we expect that he works properly. But this is where the challenge is. Inclusion is not just that. Inclusion is about how about having letting this person or this entity have their own environment, and then rest of the people being able to use that environment to their advantage. This is what is the challenge with most corporates. They uh, there is no problem with intent. Most companies want to have inclusion of at least people with disabilities in their organization. They also have policies that support that. They also have funds to do that. But the issue is nobody wants to take the first move. They don't know how to move. Also, there is sufficient supply of able people. So why would an HR person or a recruiter even try to interview a speech and hearing impaired person when there are 20 people applying for one job vacancy that is there? The next aspect is know-how. Dealing with speech and hearing impaired or any other disability, there are certain do's and don'ts that you need to do, like how to deal with them, how to deal with their emotions, how to connect them with the rest of the employees, etc., and so on. The next aspect is the lack of sponsors. Inside an organization, you need to have sponsors. You need to have a head of department saying like, I will take it up and I will recruit speech and hearing impaired people in my team and I will get them to do work. So these things are missing and compromise. Everybody thinks that when you employ people with disabilities, your productivity compromises. So if you ask a salesperson or a production person, do you want to employ people with disabilities? Then he says, I will employ only if they are not counted in my costing. That is not the way. So that's not a support at all. That is just saying I will accommodate. And accommodation is, it's like you're allowing the person to feel suppressed or oppressed more and more by giving that option as a compromise. So these are challenges that are there. And therefore, over the last 1 year, when we have met corporates, we have proposed to them three you can call golden rules that they need to follow in. I'm just trying to see how much time do I have.
About another 5 minutes.
Okay, I'll close quickly. So we are proposing to customers the three golden rules that you need to practice when you employ at least speech and hearing impaired. First thing, programmed environment. They work best when their processes are well written and their approach to work is programmed. Take this paper from here, get it signed by so and so, do the data entry here, punch this thing here, and file this paper here. They do that very, very well. But if you ask them, take the paper and figure out what is to be done, they just cannot do. So, programmed environment, which includes a standard job, a fixed shift, a fixed job route, etc., that kind of thing they're able to do very, very well. And when I say very, very well, they can exceed the efficiency of an able person. I'm not just exaggerating it, it is true. The second aspect is community workspace. All of us, when we go to workspace, in whatever company that we work, like we typically reach the office at 9:30 or whatever, the first half an hour to 45 minutes, we are actually not working. What are we doing? We're actually bitching around. I mean, bitching is a very strong word, but we are generally chatting with our friends, saying like, oh, how difficult my commute was, how my footwear broke, how I got wet in the rain, how the rickshaw wala took 10 rupees more, or how I got a tiffin from my mother with a curry that I don't like, or how in the evening I have to go and meet somebody and I really don't want to go. This is something we need to talk. Basically, what this means is each of us, before we start working, we connect first with the social fabric of the organization, and after we connect with the social fabric of the organization, then we connect with the work fabric. And that is when your efficiency of work is so very high. That's why a lot of companies try to do team building activities, bonding activities, etc., etc. And even companies don't do that. Each of us, in our own minds, we do our own bonding with our own close knit friends. Like lunch, I know my three people who I have lunch with. If I go for a smoke break or for a tea break, I know my two guys who I will go with. And these are people that you need to have in your workplace. And when you have a speech and hearing impaired person who's your neighbor sitting in the office and you are able, you generally try to avoid the person, not because of ill intent. It's because it is so difficult to how if I need stapler, I will just shout, Rajesh, give me the stapler, and somebody will throw the stapler and your work is done. And you don't want to take the trouble of asking somebody with sign language and all that. So that is so. Therefore, we are saying that recruit people in a group of 5 or 7 people so that they are able to create their own community. That will increase their efficiency. The last aspect is about reverse inclusion, which is what I spoke about. Inclusion is about bringing somebody who does not belong to this into this by brainwashing this guy. No, change their approach. Let that person be who he is. Like in our case, in our restaurant, we it is compulsory for all the kitchen staff and the managers to learn sign language so that they are able to interact with him, right? So that is reverse inclusion. What we are saying is the environment belongs to that speech and hearing impaired person, and everybody else is able to interact with them because they understand that space. So that is the reverse inclusion. And we have tried to propagate these three. I don't know whether I should call core values or these three approaches. And corporates who have used these are really able to benefit and get and are able to extract good efficiency from speech and hearing impaired. So that's broadly what Ekalavya Foundation is trying to do right now. We are training people and then deploying them with corporates. And with the experience of that we have gained from running three restaurants are still running. So those of you who have a chance to visit Mumbai, I would invite you to visit the restaurant and experience dining there. All the restaurants are rated 4.9 on Zomato. So consistently for the last 5 years we've been there.